Grinny by Nicholas Fisk is a science fiction book written for children by Nicholas Fisk, who was a English, possibly London author, born in the 20s, died in 2016, I believe. He wrote quite a lot of books that were science fiction, mostly for children, though I believe some of them were for adults. I don't know that I've ever read any of those. In Grinny, we have our main protagonist, Tim. He one day goes to the door and is met by a figure who seems a little bit odd, who tells him that she's his great aunt Emma. Tim isn't aware of a great aunt Emma, and when he calls his mum and says great aunt Emma is here, she goes, "Oh, very funny," like there is no such person. When she comes to the door, initially Tim notices his mother doesn't seem to recognize the figure, but after the figure uses a specific catchphrase, all of a sudden his mum is sure that she knows great aunt Emma, and they get along like a house on fire. Over the subsequent early parts of the book, great aunt Emma, who he calls G-A-E for the first part of the book, behaves a bit strangely. She's got some oddities. She asks a huge number of questions. She doesn't seem to know about things that she should know. She's terrified of electricity. There's all these things that make her a bit odd. But Tim doesn't really think about that too much until the point where his sister Beth goes completely crazy and says that she isn't human because she has no smell at all, which is a very insightful and interesting point of view. They then get a series of weird, different things that happen until it's quite clear that great aunt Emma is indeed an alien who's on Earth for the purpose of sizing Earth up for an invasion force. Sure, this is spoilers, but we can deal with spoilers for a kid's book. It's not a large kid's book. It's a small one. I think I had read it a long time ago. I was unclear about the details of what it contained, however. It was fun. It's very much a young kid's book. I believe that Beth, the sister, is 7 and Tim himself is about 10. So that's probably the age range you're aiming for here. Eventually, Tim and Beth and Tim's friend all manage to fool her into telling the aliens that Earth isn't worth invading. It's probably, for a small child, a little bit of a horror story, or at least when it was when it was published, because the aliens don't mean to do good things on Earth. And they are not believed by their parents, so they're isolated and faced with a terrible menace which they must combat on their own, which they do successfully. So it's a lot of fun. I think this is very much the sort of book that probably served as a gateway drug into science fiction for a lot of people my age, and perhaps about 10 years either way. I think it's aged a little bit in that a child of those age isn't going to understand a world without mobile phones. Some children might still enjoy it, but I think it's getting into the realm of something that's more appropriate for adults who, from memory, or adults who like reading older books. Okay, Nicholas Fisk. About 60 books of children's science fiction that I'm aware of. I was excited to reread Grinny and I did quite enjoy it. I'd probably give it a 3 or 4 stars for its age group and what it is, which is quite specific. I really adored Nicholas Fisk's Trillions book. This was, again, about space invasion, but from very benign invaders that are small crystalline. I might reread that one of these days. His other book that I have is Space Hostages, which is apparently one of his more famous ones. I thoroughly didn't enjoy that, because one thing that Nicholas Fisk does in all his books, as far as I know, is he includes details about gender relations between boys and girls, and there's always an adversarial element to these relations, because honestly, growing up with lots of boys and lots of girls, there is an adversarial girl versus boy happening. In some books, that is particularly non-comment. such as Grinny, where you've got a brother and his sister, and brothers and sisters are a bit like that. In Trillions, you've got a whole gang of kids, and they're actually quite sweet to each other, but not in a saccharine way, in a believable, nice kids way. In Space Hostages, I found the adversarial nature too much to deal with. I don't know that I ever finished that one, but I didn't encounter it as a kid. Anyway, thank you for watching. A bit of a short, different one, because Grinny is a kid's book, but science fiction is important for kids too. So, thank you for watching. Read good books.